Hello everyone, welcome to yet another Cave Diver React video. This time, this was a recommendation from someone who sent us an email. Again, our email address is info@divetalkmedia.com. If you have any recommendations or anything you want us to review, please go ahead and send that over and we'll take a look and we'll react live for all of you to see. My name is Gus. I am a cave diver and also a scuba diving instructor. I dive with a closed circuit rebreather in caves, and I love to, kind of review these videos and provide kind of my thoughts on the things that I see, things that are not common for us to see it, mistakes, and also point out really good things. Today I'm excited because I have a video that is hosted on the GoPro YouTube channel, and it's about an incident that happened to actual cave divers. So they were filming this dive inside a cave, and they had an issue. So I want to talk about what happened there, where I saw kind of the training that we receive as cave divers should have kicked in, and it didn't really kick in, and kind of like what we can learn from it. Now, spoiler alert, no one dies in this thing. So if you're coming, because if you're coming to see the video because we've posted a couple of videos in the past about the death of Dave Shaw and Yuri Lipsky, for example, we're not going to be having anyone dying today. So this was something where this was an accident or an incident, I would say, where the divers all survived. But it was very scary, nonetheless. This will be scary for divers, I think. And it also is scary for cave divers as well. However, I think that this could have been prevented. But at the same time, if it was prevented, we wouldn't have a video to review. So I want to talk about that because I'm pretty sure the divers who were affected as part of this incident kind of learned their lesson the hard way, right? They had the issue and then they were like, okay, now we know what to do about this. I'm lucky that I haven't been through an incident like this one, but I've prepared ahead of time just in case it happens to me. I wouldn't fall into, what happened in the video, and I will show you. I actually brought my equipment down to show you. However, I'm going to kind of leave the equipment side to the end, just in case you're not interested in diving equipment whatsoever. If you don't want to find out what I would have done differently, then you can just watch the video and then skip the rest, basically, because I'm going to show you kind of what are the things that we can do in order to prevent an issue like that from happening. It's a pretty short video, but I think this explanation will be pretty long just because we're going to go through the gear.
I'm Gina Edgerton.
My name is Brian Wiederspan. My primary dive partner is my wife.
He's going to hand you my tray when you can, Gina.
Who's also a part-time dive instructor as well.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a second. So if you notice the name of the divers, David and Gina Edgerton is actually the person that will have the incident. And I think that when it comes to mindset, right, if your main dive partner is your wife, I think that increases a little bit of your anxiety when it comes to responding to this incident. Now, multiple divers, one of the things that you will see in this video too, and I'm going to prepare you for it so you can see it when it happens, is when we are cave divers or technical divers, like even if we're in the open water, technical divers are, I don't want to say like a superior class of divers or anything like that. Anyone can become a technical diver. But what I want to point out is that our mindset really changes depending on what type of dives we're doing and who we're diving with. If we're doing a technical dive, whether it's in a cave or outside a cave, the mindset of how we conduct the dive changes. For example, when you are a recreational diver and you're out in the open water, typically if you have an issue, maybe your body will help you. But like if you're out, like I've been in a cruise, for example, and then I go into a dive, and on the boat, like I feel that it was just mainly me and my buddy. And if one of us had an issue, we would have to help each other and then go to the surface, and like the dive will continue. Like everyone else will just keep doing their thing. And that happens a lot in recreational diving. There wasn't anything special about that specific dive. I think that's pretty much how it works when it comes to recreational divers. Is you and your buddy are a team, and if any one of you have an issue, you help each other and you go to the surface. That's basically how it is. In technical diving, going to the surface if you have an issue may not be an option. If it's early in the dive, perhaps, and you're not in an overhead environment like a cave, perhaps you can go to the surface if you have a problem. But technical diving means diving beyond recreational limits. So even though you're doing a technical dive, if it's early in the dive, it's still just a recreational dive. A recreational dive means you can go to the surface at any time for any reason. On a technical dive, you no longer have that option. We have established that before in this channel. So when you're doing a technical dive, you dive as a team. You still have a buddy, and you can see that David mentioned my wife Gina is my buddy, so they work together. But the whole team will react if there's an issue, right? If any diver in the team has a problem, we are taught as technical divers to have this swarm mentality where everyone really conveys in the person with the problem, and now all of our combined resources, expertise, capabilities, whatever you name it, will be now at hand, will be available. Anything we have is available for the issue. Whether you or my buddy, it doesn't matter. Anyone in the team has a problem, we swarm the victim and we help the victim, whatever it is. For example, I dive with a rebreather. If my rebreather fails and I'm on a super deep dive in the ocean, or I'm in a dive inside a cave or whatever, I have zero worries that I'm going to be alone and I'm going to have to deal with this thing. My entire team will swarm on me and I will have all the resources available. For example, my rebreather stops working, it blows up for whatever reason. Now I have not only my bailout tanks to survive this cave or wreck or whatever it is, but I have my buddy's tanks and everyone else in the team's tanks to help me survive, essentially. Now, obviously, if someone else has a problem, then, now we all have to help, two people and whatnot. But one of the biggest things that changes between being a recreational diver and a tech diver is that, kind of the way we address issues. And one of the things you will see in this video is exactly that. As soon as Gina has a problem, everyone swarms her. All right. I want you guys to pay attention to that, because I definitely want to commend everyone in this team, which seems to be a small team of 4 or 5 people, for having that swarm mentality. They show it perfectly in this video. And I think that is one of the reasons why everyone made it out alive. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is Gina's credentials. So I don't know if you guys missed it, but I actually looked her up. Her credentials are in this website called frogkickingdiving.com. Pretty cool name, by the way. But her name is Gina Edgerton. As you can see, she's a UTD technical instructor, number 12. That's a very, very low number. That's pretty awesome. Like, I think my instructor number for SSI is like 93,000 and some change. So you can see it's pretty big. And for INTD, my instructor number, I think, is on the tens of thousands or something like that. To be number 12, it's pretty impressive, right? But UTD is a pretty young organization. I'll talk about UTD in a second. She's a NAUI technical instructor. NAUI has been around for a long time. You can see her number is 42,000 and some change. NAUI is big. In a lot of cases, people really love NAUI's open water classes, actually above some of the other agencies. And I might talk about that. I don't know if we'll have time for that and why. I've never taken a NAUI class, by the way. And then she's certified UTD Cave 2. Cave 2 means full cave. She can, go in jumps. She can explore whatever. She's not, she doesn't have to stay within a line or have limitations. She's full cave certified, just like me. So that's great. She has 1,800 dives, very experienced, 200 dives requiring stage decompression, meaning 200 tech dives, requiring stage decompression. She had to decompress along the way. That's great. 300 DPV dives, definitely had me beat on that, because I have like 5 or something like that. So she's awesome. She's been doing DPVs for a long time. And 200 cave dives. All right. So at least this was listed. I don't know when was the last time this was updated. Maybe these numbers are higher now. Maybe she has 2,000 dives now, 500 DPV dives. I don't know what it is, but she is clearly very experienced. She's not a cave diving instructor, but she's a cave diver. And she has 200 cave dives. 200 cave dives, I know it sounds little, but it's a lot of cave dives. I have 27, for example, and I've been cave diving for almost a year at this point. And she has 200. So she has almost 10 times the experience that I have when it comes to cave diving. Now, I do worry or wonder about UTD in particular. And she's an instructor for them. I don't mean to bash UTD as an agency. I have no experience working with them. But when I look at UTD stands for Unified Team Diving. I don't know. I think I've heard of this agency before. I've never taken a class. Their logo is pretty cool. They have a DPV on the logo. I don't know if you can see. DPV stands for Diver Propulsion Vehicle. Those things that look like torpedoes, right? Which I have one, and I love my DPV. But it's interesting. So when I read this, it says, you're going to be amazing. That's like their motto. And then it says, you will become an awesome diver with UTD training. Whether you take a traditional UTD scuba class or join the UTD scuba coaching program, you will become the best, safest, badass team diver in the water. Okay. So anyway, there's this agency called UTD. It's not very difficult to start your own kind of training agency. The difficult part is to actually have your agency listed under the World Recreational Scuba Training Council, which is this thing right here. And I pulled it up for you because I want to talk about this for those of you who are non-divers specifically. If you watch this channel and you're like, I want to become a diver, I want to be a scuba diver, right? You don't have to be a cave diver and do all this stuff that looks dangerous, but you can be a regular diver. I mean, I'm in love with it, as you can tell. So I totally recommend it. When people ask me, for example, should I do NAUI? Should I do SSI? Should I do PADI? Like, which agency should I go with? The answer is, it doesn't really matter because all those agencies are members of the World Recreational Scuba Training Council. So if you read what that is, look at the mission statement of the WRSTC. It says the WRSTC is dedicated to the worldwide safety of the recreational diving public. As such, one of the WRSTC's primary goals is the development of worldwide minimum training standards. Okay? And that's really what they do very well. The establishment of globally recognized and implemented standards is a valuable asset in addressing local and national regulatory issues. So in a short, I guess, summary, this agency, which is a nonprofit agency, comes up with, here are the very minimum standards for any of our member agencies to provide training under. They have to show these things and require these pieces of equipment as a minimum in order for them to be certified under the World Recreational Scuba Training Council. Now, what do you get from this? What you get is essentially, if you have a certification under an agency that is a member of the WRSTC, then is recognized globally and is recognized by operators from other agencies. For example, just as an example, I have some cards right here from multiple agencies that I've taken training. Here's my open water instructor certification under SSI, just to show you a card. This card, I can go to a PADI, shop, or a NAUI shop, for example, like we've done many, many times, and I can show this card, and they'll be like, okay, you're an instructor. They recognize it. The same thing with this guy, and this happens to be my Normoxic Trimix CCR card. This is from IANTD, as you can see. It says technical diver on it. I can go into any dive operation in the world, in any country, like in November of this year, for example, where I'm planning to go to Micronesia and explore the wrecks in Chalk Lagoon. The wrecks in Chalk Lagoon can be pretty deep. You need an expert level of certification to go down to 200 plus feet to explore these wrecks. What are they going to ask for? Are you certified to go that deep? I just show my IANTD card, which is a member of the WRSTC, and they'll look at it and be like, okay, you're good to go. It doesn't matter. The agency name doesn't matter as long as they're part of this council, because all of the agencies that are part of it have to follow the same minimum standards and procedures in order to deliver training. So they're reciprocated around the world. The same thing with PADI. PADI is the biggest agency. I have a few certifications from PADI. I go anywhere and I'm like, hey, I'm a certified dry suit diver, for example, is one of the certifications I have through PADI. I can dive with a dry suit anywhere in the world because it's a PADI certification. PADI is a member of the WRSTC. The UTD agency that she's a member of is not a member of it. As a matter of fact, here I pulled a list of all the agencies that are currently members of it. So if the question is, as you can see, as of 2020, these are the agencies that are a member of it. If the question is, who should I take scuba training with? It doesn't really matter as long as you take it from one of these agencies. That will be my recommendation because it will be recognized anywhere you go. You want to go diving in the Bahamas? No problem. You have an open water diver card from SSI, SDI, RAID, INTD. Who cares? They all have to teach the same safety standards. And when we get into the video and we talk about safety standards, I want to talk about some of the safety standards that I learned on my IANTD cave diving class. So my cave diving certification is from IANTD. As you can see, IANTD is listed first in the members of the WRSTC. So it's recognized everywhere. UTD is not. Now, I'm not saying that their class is crap or they're unsafe or anything like that. There are other agencies out there like Global Underwater Explorers, for example, GUE, which is globally recognized as a super strong training agency. They are not part of this member council because they don't want to be or because they don't meet the standards. I'm not really sure why, but they're just not part of it. So I can't really say, well, they don't teach this or they don't require this. I'm not really sure if they do or not, but I want to move forward just, essentially talking about what I learned because I've learned from an agency that happens to be part of this. And I assume if you get your cave diving certification from any of these agencies, whoever have, and I'm not sure if all these agencies teach cave diving, they will probably all follow kind of the same standards that I saw when I took my IANTD class. Lastly, Gina is listed as having 200 cave dives. There's an agency here in the U.S. called NSSCDS that essentially gives awards to divers that successfully meet kind of some deadlines or some milestones, not deadlines, milestones when it comes to safe cave diving. There's 3 awards that are given by this organization, and they're free awards. Once you reach that milestone, you apply for it, they check your logs, and if you are checked out, you get the award. The first award is named the Abe Davis Award. Abe Davis, fun fact, happens to be the first known cave diver, at least in America, for sure. So when you hit 100 safe cave dives, you receive the Abe Davis Award. You apply for it, you submit your log, you have, buddies on every one of your dive. They might be contacted to verify that you are, in fact, you have been diving or whatever. Once they verify your logs, you get the award. That's basically how it works. My instructor, Doug Eversole, for example, received the award 3 years ago, and he became a cave diving instructor last year. So this award has been around for a long time. There's actually over 1,000 people, 1,087 at the recording of this video that are on the database for the Abe Davis Award, which once again is for 100 safe cave dives. Gina's name is not there. Now, I'm not saying she doesn't have 100 cave dives. She probably hasn't applied for the award. So, Gina, if you watch this, you should apply for it because you have over 200 cave dives. The next tier of the award is called the Henry Nicholson Award. Henry Nicholson created a lot of the safety, recovery, and rescue protocols basically that we use in cave diving. And when you hit 500 cave dives, safe cave dives, you can receive this award, the Henry Nicholson Award. Now, how many people have 500 cave dives? I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but think about the Abe Davis Award with 100. There's 1,087 people that have received that award. The Henry Nicholson one, which is 500, only 51 people. So from 1,087 to 51. So getting a few hundred cave dives is not easy. And I just want to highlight how experienced Gina is when she's doing this dive. I mean, she is very, very, very experienced, way more than me, by the way. So she should probably react to my videos, to be honest. And by the way, the third level of award is called the Chick Exley Award. Chick Exley is perhaps the most known cave diver, cave explorer in history. He's one of the creators of cave diving. Basically, he wrote 2 books about cave diving. He created many of the rules that we use today to be able to be safe cave divers. Plus, he's the first person in history to log 1,000 safe cave dives. So, you guessed it. The final award to safe cave diving is named Chick Exley and is given to people that can demonstrate they've completed 1,000 safe cave dives. Only 29 people have received the Chick Exley Award. So it's very, very exclusive. If you ever meet someone who has received the Chick Exley Award and you're going to go cave diving, especially if you're an instructor, your cave diving instructor is a recipient of the Chick Exley Award, you'll be in good hands. Pretty sure. So it's very, very exclusive award. But anyway, back to the video. Let's go back to the video and now watch. I'm going to try to watch as much as possible all along, and then at the end, I'll kind of give you my thoughts. It's a short video.
I've been scuba diving for more than 25 years.
Part-time underwater explorer.
Cave diving for more than 9 years.
Primarily searching for shipwrecks.
I'm here to help with the underwater filming of this project.
On one of our dives, we surfaced into actually a fairly large air dome. And these air domes can be absolutely beautiful in there, but they are most likely going to be oxygen deficient.
Okay, so let me stop right here for a second. So you see that air dome, also known as air bells sometimes. They're basically, as divers go through it, in most cases, all the bubbles they blow start building into the ceiling. And it can create a pretty big pocket of air. Now, in some cases, you may find a cave that has an air dome that wasn't created by divers. Like, it could be that it has been air that has been trapped there for millions of years, right? Or at least for hundreds of thousands of years. So the direction is you should never breathe air on an air dome or an air bell because you don't know what that air is. It could be methane, like it could be any gas in there. But even if it is blown by divers, like you can see David was talking about how it's oxygen deficient. That is because the air is built by the bubbles that are blown away. So as you breathe air, assuming that you're breathing air, you're breathing in 21% oxygen and you're blowing out about 16% oxygen. Now 16% oxygen can sustain life. That's why mouth-to-mouth respiration works, because you can blow 16% oxygen, which is better than nothing, and that can sustain life. I think the number is about 12% to 10% can sustain life. Anything below 10%, you kind of pass out, on oxygen. So if you're blowing all these bubbles and they're building up in the, in the ceiling of this cave, you can go out there and breathe it, but it's not going to be 21% oxygen, which is the normal air. It's going to be 16% at best, and it could be lower than that. So because of that, if I'm in a cave and I see an air bell, I don't think I will ever remove my regulator out of my mouth to see what the air is, right? So let's keep going, because you'll see that these divers are talking about, like, there's an air bell, it could be oxygen deficient. We don't know, but they still breathe it. So let's see.
As I was ascending, I was pulling on the inflator, trying to inflate, and it came off in my hand.
That's bad. Really
Realized
bad.
I was struggling staying on the surface. I couldn't get inflated and started kicking quite hard. After that, I hardly remember anything.
Okay, so let's start with the gear. So what Gina is diving with is called a wing. Now, I happen to have a wing that is not installed on anything. Let me see if I can get this in camera. Now, this is not installed into a plate. It's just the wing, right? It looks like this. Now, on this side of the wing, let me see how I can get it on camera. On this side of the wing, notice that I have this thing called the inflator. That's what she's talking about. The inflator is basically a deflator as well. It allows us to air out the air inside the wing. And by the way, the wing, essentially what it does is we can inflate it with air. So all of the weight that we carry in order to go down, we can add air to our wing so we can be, perfectly trim underwater, be on, stay on the same at the same depth. So we don't carry too much weight that we're sinking or too much air that we're going up. We just add enough air so we can be perfectly still, basically at the same depth underwater. So what she's saying is she was trying to add air, which is with this button right here. She was doing that, and this thing stayed in her hand. Now, one of the skills that you learn in scuba diving is that you can unhook your air hose just like this, and nothing happens. You can actually plug it back in underwater, on the surface. Your wing or your BCD, buoyancy compensation device, will not be affected by you unhooking the hose. That's not what she's talking about. She's not talking about that the hose was in her hand. She's talking about this whole thing is in her hand. So it either come up from this joint right here, which is basically a zip tie. It has a little screw, but it's a zip tie. Or it came from the elbow, which is this thing back here. And you can see how easy it is that if you pull this thing, you see how I'm unscrewing it just with my hand, right? Look. Just a couple of spins around, and it's completely out. So now it's just a hole. There's nothing to stop water from going in, and that's what she's talking about. She tried to use this thing, and it stayed in her hand. So now this thing, you cannot inflate it because even if you lose the hose, okay, you can still orally inflate into this. See, it has like a mouthpiece. I can blow into this thing to inflate my wing. If you lose the hose, if the hose ruptures, if your tank is not working, whatever it is, I can still orally inflate this thing. Like if I make it to the surface and I have no air, I can blow into this so I can float on the surface and wait for somebody to come get me, right? So what she's talking about is I pulled this thing just completely out of it. Now you have this thing in your hand. Worst case scenario. Really, really bad. But there's a solution for it. I'll talk about it in a second. Let's keep watching.
Yeah, this air is not good.
Right over here. Put your regulator.
Watch
Put
this.
your regulator in.
Swarm mentality. Watch. Everyone swims to her. It's awesome. Everybody has GoPros.
Just breathe off the rig, Gina.
See, everyone is on her.
Put the regulator in your mouth.
Now, watch. He's telling her, keep your regulator in your mouth. Keep your regulator in your mouth. Why? Because she's breathing this oxygen-deficient air. She can pass out all the way, and you don't want that. So, obviously, she's trying to tell him, like, you look, my inflator is messed up. I cannot inflate. I cannot inflate. She's panicking big time, and these guys are doing the right thing. Keep the regulator in your mouth. Breathe, breathe. Because even if you sink to the bottom of this cave, you're breathing, right? We can then figure out how to get you to safety, but she is just trying to stay afloat, and at that point, as she claimed, she doesn't even remember what happened. Panic 100% took over, and again, everybody's staying calm, including David, her husband, so he's doing a great job.
I don't know what's going on.
Complete panic. She's trying to hold to this stalactite, by the way, which took probably tens of thousands of years, and you're not supposed to touch him, but I mean, it feels like she's going to drown, so she's holding on to it. I don't criticize her for that. I would have done the same.
Stop.
I'm glad it was a big one.
You need to
I
breathe
can't
off
even
this
stay
regulator.
up. Keep my head off the air. She's trying to communicate, but they keep breathing, keep breathing. And you can see the other divers are also breathing on the regulator. They know that the air is not good. They're staying calm, just trying to help. Her mask is off her face, clear sign of a diver in distress. She's trying to hang on to anything. It's a bad situation.
Breathe off the regulator.
Breathe off the regulator. The air here is not good. Breathe off the regulator. It's choking you.
Breathe.
Breathe deep.
Very hard this.
Hold on and calm down. Hold on.
Hang on to that.
Breathe from the regulator.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened.
Don't apologize. Breathe.
What we discovered was her inflator had come loose.
Yep, all the way like I show you.
Not only did she lose that, that wing was filling up with water.
I do it. Okay, Gina, where were you?
That's not good.
It really just does go to show that if you let things snowball, even the best diver can get into a bad situation.
It was a really, really intense moment for me. Probably the most intense moment I've had with diving.
And that's pretty much the end of it. So let's talk about what happened and what she could have done to prevent essentially like panicking and feeling like she was going to die and be able to react to it. Once again, this shows that this can happen to anyone, including me, right? Anyone. So I'm not saying like there's no chance this can happen to me. There are things that I've done in order to prevent myself from accidents like this one. I didn't do it because I saw this video, by the way. I've been doing this for months now. But still, this can happen to any diver. So here's what happened. She only has one way to add air. It seems like she only has one way to add air to her, essentially to her buoyancy compensator and to her overall, like in order to add air to not sink to the bottom. It's really hard for you to just swim up if whatever you have is super heavy. In my case, and I wish I knew what tank she was using. They look pretty big. I think they were steel 72s, but I use steel 85s. And those things are so heavy. I wear no weights whatsoever when I'm diving with those tanks because the tanks are so heavy that I don't need to add weights into it. And I typically have to add a bunch of weights, 16 pounds, whatever it is, when I'm not diving with heavy tanks like that. But cave diving, those tanks are so heavy and so massive because I need them for air if my rebreather fails that I don't need to add any weights. So the one thing that you learn scuba diving is if you're having an issue being buoyant is drop your weights. That's in like class 1, right? They teach you how to drop your weights. Well, what weights? If your tanks are super heavy, your weights are not a thing. You cannot drop them. So your weights are your tanks, and you cannot drop your tanks. She's not diving with a rebreather, by the way. She's just open circuit diving, meaning her tanks are the only air she has. So it's not like she can drop her tanks because, yes, she's going to be buoyant. She's going to be in the surface, but now she can escape out of this cave. Plus, the air inside the cave is oxygen deficient. So it's not like she can stay there and wait for help, right? She can pass out and drown. So it's a really, really bad situation. So what happens if this happened to you and, like I showed you earlier with the wing, the whole inflator falls apart and your wing is filling up with air? Well, under the agency that I got certified on, this is a scenario that we practice, right? And what they teach you is even to take the class, you have to have at least 2 ways to gain buoyancy. One can be your wing, like we saw before. And the second one has to be something else. It cannot be that primary wing is everything. So you either can have a dry suit. Dry suit has a hose that is plugged into it and you can inflate it. You'll have a button in your chest and literally just press that button. It will add air to your suit. So if your wing fails, you can control buoyancy with your suit. Or 2, if you're in a warm cave like they were in Mexico, if you're in a warm cave and your dry suit will make you too hot, so you're wearing a wetsuit, then you have to have something else. What is that something else? Check this out. This thing. This is a surface market buoy. This is a super long sausage, safety sausage, as it's known to, that you can roll out, inflate. You notice that it has like a little thing right here that I can plug in my hose to, the hose that you saw me take away before. I can plug that in, or I can blow into it, but I can inflate this thing with air. And what you do is you put it under your arms, like this, like if you were, with one of those pool noodles, you put it under your arm and you can float with it, and you can add air or remove air. This same thing, I don't know if you can see, but this same thing I can pull and it will release air. So it works like my wing. I can add air, I can remove air, I can control my buoyancy with it. My dive is over at that point, but at least I won't sink to the bottom and risk basically drowning if there's no bottom. Like if it's a super deep cave, that will be a really, really big problem. You saw it on the Yuri Lipsky video where he sank all the way to the bottom of the blue hole in Egypt. Right? So what you do is you have one of these things in your pocket. It's only going to be used if your wing fails. Your wing fails, you inflate this thing, and now I can put it under my arms and literally swim with this thing under my arms and get out of there. Okay? I can do that. I personally chose another path to having two sources of inflation. Let me grab my rebreather and show you what I mean. Okay, so here's my rebreather. You won't be able to see the whole thing on it, but what I wanted to show you is that here on the left, just so you can see, yes, it's orange. Everything I have in my rebreather is orange pretty much. I have that inflator, just like you saw on the previous wing. I'm trying to do this all in camera and it's hard. But I have the inflator. So I have the deflator button right here, inflator button right here, mouthpiece right here to inflate orally, just like the one she has. It also has that elbow in the back that I can unscrew and pop up, and then it will be sinking, it will be filling with water just like it happened to her, which is a problem. So the way I approach this is I upgraded my rebreather. My rebreather didn't come with this. I upgraded to a dual inflator and deflator model. So you can see I have two of these on the same wing, right? It has two bladders inside. So if one of the elbows falls off, like this guy right here in the back, which is the original elbow falls off, I can still inflate and deflate on my right hand side. This stays kind of behind my right arm. I don't even see it or mess with it at all. I only use my main one, which is the one on the left, right? But if this one were to fail, if it comes apart right here at the joint, if I pull it out of the socket right here on the elbow, whatever, I don't have to panic. I just reach below me, like it will be around here, and I will reach out to this guy, inflate, deflate, whatever it is. So it's a dual bladder wing. It has safety built into it. I have two in one basically, and I only use one, and the other one is only extra just in case. So that's how I approach the dual inflation problem. If I'm in a cave that is cold, all I do is I unplug this line right here, the orange line that you see, and I plug that into my dry suit. So I don't use the dual bladder if I'm driving with a dry suit, because the dry suit will be that secondary inflation that we talked about. That is the standard, and is what you should have, is two modes of inflation. So I no longer have to bring an SMB in my dives. It's bulky. It doesn't make any sense inside a cave, to be honest. So I just use my rebreather because it has two bladders, or I would use my bladder in my dry suit. So that is how you get around the limitation of having just one inflation. So if Gina had a double wing, and maybe she did, and under panic you kind of forget your gear and all of that, and I totally get that. I'm not going to judge her on that. All she had to do is, oh wow, it's not inflating, let me reach for my secondary inflation, my dry suit or my secondary wing or bladder, and inflate that. Now I'm at the surface. What the hell is going on with my primary inflation? Hey, David, what is it? Oh, it came off the thing? Okay, whatever. Okay, that's fine. I got this one. Let's get out of here. Like, the dive is over. But it's just really, really awesome to see how they all swarm to her, how they all kind of cocoon her and helped her out. It is always hard to see people panicking like this in dives. You always try to keep your cool, but I can totally understand how, if she had two heavy tanks and all of a sudden your only inflation method or capabilities completely dead and out of the picture, I mean, it's rough. And I think she reacted the way I would have reacted, the way anyone would have reacted. That's why we need to work on having, two of everything. Two is one is none kind of philosophy. I bet if her light failed, she would have had other lights. We dive at least with three lights when it comes to cave diving. She wouldn't even have asked for help. Like, oh, my light failed? Let me get my other light. No problem. If like pretty much anything, if her mask fell off, guarantee you she had a pocket mask or a secondary mask. She would have just reached for that, boop, put it on her face, good to go. But inflation, it looks like she only had one wing. And by the way, I looked at her equipment. It's on the website, frogkicking.com, that I mentioned. She was using a dive right wing, just like the ones I just showed you, the one in my rebreather and the one that I showed you previously, which was the original one I had on the rebreather. It was a single bladder. I upgraded it to a dual bladder. It was a lot of money. I think it was like $500. I don't remember how much the upgrade was, but it is worth it to be safe. I want to cave dive for decades to come. It's not a cheap thing. Some people will be like, wow, that's how much I paid for my entire, BCD. I know it's pricey, but it's way safer to do it that way. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Very, very short, very, very heavy on all of the descriptions and equipment and all of that. But I know that some people really like the gear part of diving. So I wanted to get into that and kind of describe the way I do it. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and click the like button and leave a comment. The YouTube algorithm loves, when people leave comments and make recommendations and things like that, so they can recommend it to other divers. Really, really love the fact that the YouTube channel is growing. We have giveaways, as I've mentioned before. Whenever we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to start giving away some of the stuff that some of these companies ask us to review and provide feedback on, like our, Orca Torch lights, for example, which right now we have 4 of them. Orca Torch keeps sending us models and we provide feedback to them, and, they love working with us. So we cannot wait to start giving away, all of this stuff. We want to reward you guys for staying with us and watching. We love talking about diving. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I've been trying to respond to all the comments that people are leaving behind. Or if you have, something longer that you want to type in, or comments, you want to keep it private, please go ahead and send us an email at info@divetalkmedia.com. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.